Hi, my name is Thomas Hübel, and I welcome you very much to the Collective Healing Conference. These videos, these short daily insight videos, are aimed at giving you a short nugget at the beginning of each day that resonates with the topic of our day, and also helps you to kind of move through the whole daily experience of our conference. And so, as of today, we are talking about the change also of collective trauma into collective healing. Like our summit was aimed at developing like a deeper understanding and awareness of systemic and collective trauma, which was the Collective Trauma Summit that we ran over 5 years. And this year we decided, wow, we actually accomplished by reaching almost 500,000 people through the summit. We felt, okay, part of the educational or awareness building part is done. And now more and more people want to move into like a sense of agency. So, what can we do about collective trauma? How can we approach it? What are the practices, skills, facilitation skills, structures we need for us to deal with collective trauma? And we also changed from a summit into a conference because we have 9 workshops going on that you can attend, like live workshops that give some introduction and initiation into like action and skill building and practices. So that's definitely a great resource. And on the other hand, of course, I will speak a little bit to collective trauma. What does that mean? And collective healing. So in a way, we could say in the traumatic experience, something is so overwhelming that it needs to be excluded. It needs to be shut down. It needs to be anesthetized. It needs to be split off. So everything that's excluded will try to find a way back into the experience to integrate itself. And usually that happens through symptoms. So, on a collective level, that's also true. A lot of collective pain that has been inflicted through collective hurt is still excluded. And we have been born into a pre traumatized world, and our parents and grandparents have been born into a pre traumatized world and experienced then in that world again trauma and also potentially healing. And now we want to see, okay, we have been born into a world that was already traumatized. Some of that collective trauma has been normalized, which means we say, oh, that's how the world is, instead of saying, wait a minute, like the integrated part of our world is that's how the world is. And the hurt part of our world is that's how the world is when it's hurt. And so we want to create through awareness building and recognition and discernment, we want to see, oh, these are emergent processes, processes that have a future, that are developing, that are growing, that are relational, that are warm, that are generous. And then there are processes that are repetitive, they're disrelated, they're kind of, they feel separate and not intimate, cold. And these processes need to be recognized. These parts of our organizational and societal processes can be discerned. We can find ways how to look deeper what actually drives those trauma symptoms and develop an architecture for integration. And that's why we are speaking this year at the Collective Healing Conference. We brought together many great speakers that are in a multidisciplinary discourse and bring in different angles how to spark collective healing. And collective healing is the integration of that unintegrated collective hurt and how we come together. Same as even this conference. Everybody, when you listen to this content, you're already part of, and obviously you are interested in a deeper healing process on a collective level for yourself, but also maybe for the structures you're impacting through your work and as a citizen in our society. And so collective healing happens through all of us, first of all, that feel a resonance and that feel drawn to that. And then on a deeper level, every one of us that acquires knowledge, skills, engages certain practices, and also becomes part of building, creating an architecture for healing. So the Collective Healing Conference is also like an inspirational event where we can listen to different people that worked often for many decades in a certain niche or certain stream to spark collective healing. And so when we listen to other people's experiences, what drives them, how their own life story actually led them to do what they do, we can get inspired. And of course, we won't do the same, but we can take the inspiration and feel, wow, actually, as I listen to some of the talks, I have my own ideas how I can bring collective healing into my area of influence. And many of us affect societies and influence societies in various sectors and various forms. So together, we actually are a movement, and everybody within their own creative capabilities and capacities will bring some of this inspiration into action, practice, and some structure. And so I would say for today, it's great to be inspired from the guest speakers that we have, and also contemplate a little bit, okay, how can I contribute to a world that establishes or meets a deep need? Because today we know too much about individual but also systemic trauma to keep on moving ahead and try to forget the past that happened. We know that whatever has been excluded needs to be included, needs to be digested, integrated, turned into post traumatic learning. And that wisdom that post traumatic learning brings is the way we can affect and meet our world in a different and more holistic way. And that's amazing. So post traumatic learning is a real gain for the individual, for the relationships, for the organizations, for the culture, for humanity, and eventually for the universe. And that's why um, I believe, as responsible citizens, we all can take that challenge and can take that part of our purpose and make it real in the way we can do it and we affect society. So I wish you a very inspirational day. Every day we will have one of these short videos at the beginning of the day that sets a little bit the tone of the day and resonates with the topic of the day, so that we can meet every day as you go through the Collective Healing Conference. And I wish you a very inspirational journey, and may it spark your own agency, that we see, wow, yeah, there are challenges in this world. There's what we call sometimes the polycrisis in this world, but we all have agency. And that agency together is a collective agency. And that's, I think, the power we need to grow as humanity.
Hello, welcome. I'm so happy you're here joining this collective movement for healing and awakening, especially addressing the most important issue of trauma. And I'm Master Min Tong Gu, and I'm the founder for the Chi Center in Santa Fe. I'm so grateful to be here sharing the gift of wisdom healing Qigong. And I want to thank Thomas Haber and his amazing team for creating this movement over the years. So through my own personal work of Qigong, I discover not only the possibility of healing and awakening, but also more importantly, and realizing the bottom line is addressing the trauma. And that is so true. The same experience when I work with so many students, tens of thousands of students over more than 2 decades, and realizing when people want to address all kind of issue on the surface, including different diagnosis of chronic, even incurable conditions, and even the need for emotional well-being as well for spiritual growth, spiritual fulfillment. And boiled down to it is really the deepest issue is trauma. Again, it's in the body, not only the story and circumstances and all the overwhelming issue happening in our life, but more importantly is trauma is energetic contraction stored in the physical body, in the energy system of the body. So, and Qigong is really specialized to address this condition in our system. So on one hand, stress, everyday stress, is a form of trauma. On the other hand, any traumatic experience happened in the past, whether it's personal, collective, continuously causing, accumulatively, it become a contracted energy in our system. So on one hand, trauma is the experience that means beyond our own energy system can handle. And that's often can happen in childhood. But it's really also happening every day, and especially it's happening over the pandemic when we feeling a sense of overwhelmed and hopelessness and doesn't know what to do, in general speaking, mentally, emotionally. That's the indication of accumulative not only stress, but trauma is happening. So first is become more aware, more aware. Every day we experience trauma. Not only childhood, as I did, I fell down a toilet and a big hole of shit to this level. I couldn't breathe. I have some sort of near-death experience, lost consciousness. So as a result, my body carry asthma from the time I remember. So in the process of healing this disease of asthma, I was able to heal the trauma of falling into a toilet. But more importantly, I discovered the result of the trauma is the disconnection of mind and body, disconnection of the mind-body. And this disconnection leading to the complication of life. The most important complication is the mind, not only disconnect from the body, but unaware of what is happening in the body, unaware of ongoing stress of life, ongoing trauma, whether it's personal or collective, especially happening now during the pandemic. We're all experiencing trauma. It's a collective trauma. And yet, if you're not aware of your body, not aware the body is carrying the traumatic energy, the contracted energy, then not only this body continue function in compromised way, eventually leading to disease, compromising the function in all dimensions, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Then eventually, again, leading to disease, not only physical disease, but also all kind of disease, diagnosed or not only personal, but also affecting relationship, all relationship, affecting all relationship to each other, to life, to planet Earth, in general, spiritual dimension as well. So the disconnection of mind-body is a key to be aware. So to address that is simple. Is connecting with this body, coming back to this body, come back to our heart, and deeply we can do in counting what is true inside of us. May not be comfortable, may not be easy. So that is the invitation. That's the journey to not only become aware what is true inside our body, including trauma, including stress, including contracted energy in our body, affecting the function of life, but also discover it's possible, can change the energy system inside of us. You can shift from contraction to openness, from stagnation to flow, from disconnection to connection to the wholeness of who we are again. So in this process, you naturally not only hear the trauma from the past, as well releasing the trauma of the ongoing life. But more importantly, you're reprogramming your energy system, able to increase resilience, increase the greater capacity for wisdom, for conscious choice, for creativity, no matter what is happening in our life, in our circumstances. So instead of become a victim of trauma, you become the cause of healing. You become empowered person, making your own choice, able to not only manage your stress, release your trauma, but more importantly, your energy system able to respond to life in greater capacity of awareness, wisdom, joy, and creativity, and deeply fulfilling your life purpose, including spiritual awakening, spiritual realization. So wisdom healing Qigong is a practice. Allow you to take this journey, go deep inwardly, connecting with your body, not only discovering what is true inside of you, but discover the deeper truth, the deeper capacity. Slow the practice of movement, sound, meditation. Slow this direct experience, you can transform the old pattern of contracted energy associating with trauma. Again, all kind of trauma, childhood trauma, everyday trauma, personal trauma, as well the collective trauma we're experiencing. They're all inseparable. They're all inseparable. So with that said, I would like to introduce one of my favorite practice from Wisdom Healing Qigong is the sound healing practice. Allow you to tap into the energy of your 5-organ system beyond the mental story, beyond the label of good and bad, right, wrong, should or shouldn't, which continuously reinforcing the trauma. So by connecting with the body, feeling what is true inside of you this moment, allow the sound, awakening the energy, opening the energy. So first, just quickly introduce the simple paradigm. In this case, is very ancient wisdom, might be new for you. So first of all, the 5 organ system in your body, not only it's important for physical function of your health, but also associating directly with your main emotion, as well your mental, spiritual function as a whole energy system of yourself. So this sound we're going to introduce allow you directly awakening energy associating with the 3 dimension, the 3 sound for each organ. So the heart is associating the emotion of the degree of happiness. When the energy is contracted, we feel unhappy. When the energy opening up, we're experiencing increased or greater happiness and joy. In the kidney energy system, when energy is contracted, we're experiencing fear. When the same energy awakening, opening again, you're experiencing creativity and power. When the energy of your digestive system is contracted, you're experiencing worry, ongoing worry, especially chronic worries. When the same energy awakening, opening again, you're experiencing confidence. Confidence of life is not based on story, should or shouldn't. It's a deeper gut feeling based on trust, confidence of life. So when the energy in your liver immune system contracted, you're experiencing angers. So when the energy of anger, again, which is very powerful energy, is not regulated, we not only compromising immune system, but we're compromising our life, our relationship in general. So to regulate that energy internally, allow the energy to awake, to open, to flow again, you experience courage instead of suppressed angers or reaction from the angers or angry energy. So continue to the last organ system, the lung, the respiratory system. When the energy contract, we're experiencing sadness and grief, especially ongoing sadness. Can lead to depression, so on. So when you're awakening the energy, allow yourself, feel the sadness, but without the contraction. You're experiencing compassion. So the approach for emotion, that's the core of trauma. So it's about be aware of this emotion, feeling this emotion in your body instead of suppressing it, resisting it, judging it, or ignoring it. Treating them as energy, embracing the emotion, but same time allowing the energy behind the emotion to awake, to open, to flow again. Then what you're experiencing is this sense of well-being of emotion. It's kind of dynamic movement of energy, creating a sense of emotional capacity, feeling all kind of emotion without being stuck, without being contracted. You can feel the fullness of life, all these emotions without being stuck. And that's the emotional well-being. So with that said, I'd like to invite you, join me for this practice as much as you can. And again, in this precious time, I don't have time to do the 5 organ system, do as many systems as possible. Then you can learn more by accessing the free offering I'm going to share at the end of the session. So with that said, you can follow this practice whether sitting or lying down or standing, whatever comfortable position. And gently close your eye whenever you're ready with the intention of coming back to your own body. This body is your home, the most precious home. Simply, deeply embracing all the sensation, feeling, experience inside of your own body, whatever is true in this moment. Letting go of the label of good, bad, right, wrong, or any judgment, any analysis. Simply become aware, noticing all the sensation, feeling, both comfortable and uncomfortable, both intense and subtle, both the known and unknown. Now placing the hands on top of your chest, connecting internally with your heart, acknowledging all the experience of your heart from childhood, from everyday life, from personal and collective experience as human beings. Acknowledging, honoring all the sensation, feeling, including all the emotion, even hurts from the past. Now allowing the sound, awakening your heart, awakening, opening the energy of your heart. And the first sound, activating the physical dimension of your heart. The sound like this. Making the sound with your own best effort, in your own pace. Breathe in deeply into your chest. Breathe into your chest. Breathe into your chest. Relaxing, noticing. Continuously embracing all the sensation, feeling inside of your chest, both comfortable and uncomfortable. Allowing the sound, the vibration, awakening the deeper dimension of your heart. The second sound, awakening the emotional dimension of your heart. And the sound like this. Making the sound with your best effort. Breathe into your chest. Breathe into your chest. relaxing, noticing, and continuously embracing all the sensation, feeling, including all the emotions of life. Deeply allowing the energy of your heart, awakening, naturally opening. Opening to the entire body, opening to life around you, opening to all relationships, opening to the energy of love, energy of healing, energy of joy. And continuously, the third sound awakening the mental, spiritual dimension of your heart, the wisdom of your heart, by connecting the energy of your heart with the energy of your brain, the sound like this. Breathe in softly into your chest. Can making the sound with your hands moving between your heart and your brain in front of you. Slowly from shin to breathe in to chest. Shin. Breathe in to chest. Shin. And relaxing, noticing. Continuously embracing all the sensation, feeling inside of your chest. Allowing the energy of your heart, the energy of life, naturally awakening, opening deep inside of you. Now slowly move your hands towards your low back area comfortably. You can massage your low back gently with intention of connecting with your low back, connecting with the kidney, continuously noticing the deeper sensation, feeling inside of you. Any discomfort, any pain, any emotion come up, simply noticing. Now acknowledging the fear we often experience from childhood, from life, without judging, without resisting, suppressing, without running away from it, simply embracing fear, embracing the energy beneath the fear is power, is creativity. The first sound awakening that power, the sound like this. Continue the sound with your own best effort, playfully. Even allow yourself feel the fear, the power of the fear when you're making the sound. Noticing, continuously embracing all the sensation, feeling, both comfortable and uncomfortable. You may feel warmness, even burning sensation. You may feel a sense of aliveness, powerfulness awakening inside of you. Now continue the sound, the second sound. Allow this energy continue circulating in your body, nourishing your body, transforming from fear to nourishment to creativity. The sound like this. With your own best effort, breathe in deeply into the base of your spine. Breathe in to the base of your spine. Relaxing, noticing. Can gently massaging your lower back again, embracing all the sensation, feeling inside of you. Both comfortable, uncomfortable. Both intense and subtle. And continuously awakening the mental, spiritual dimension of the kidney system, the wisdom of creativity inside of you, by connecting with this power of kidney system with your brain energy, the sound like this. Again, breathe in to the base of your spine as much as you can. Breathe in to the base of your spine. Relaxing, noticing, and gently massaging your lower back again. Now relaxing to a comfortable position, simply internally noticing, embracing all the sensation, feeling, experience inside of your own body, both comfortable, uncomfortable. both intense and subtle, both familiar and new. Allowing the energy continuously awakening deeper, opening deeper, flowing deeper. Naturally nourishing, naturally fulfilling the highest purpose of life. Whenever you're ready, gently move your body freely. Slowly open your eyes. Continuously noticing. Thank you so much for joining me in this intense sound healing practice for emotional healing, for healing of trauma, of personal and the collective. And again, it's energetic approach to address and the deeper energetic dimensions of mind, body, heart, spirit. So thank you for joining me, continuously noticing how you're feeling during the day. And the most important journey is connection of the mind with the entire body, the mind with your heart, even deeply with your 5 organ system, awakening to the wholeness, awakening to the pure essence of who we are. So that is the gift of healing of the trauma. And naturally, as a result, we're increasing our capacity for love, for joy, for wisdom, for connection, for spiritual fulfillment. So with that said, thank you again so much. Great blessing. And if you are desiring to learn more about wisdom healing qigong, particularly sound healing, you can check out the link on the website. I'm happy to share more with you to support you in any way we can, especially now through the internet, through the connection of global and technology. So this ancient teaching practice can be available for all of us for everyday life. So again, thank you, thank you.
Serene Thenelk is a Lakota Dakota clinical addiction and mental health therapist, mother of 4 children, and member of the Ikantuan and Sichangu Uyate in South Dakota. She is the Community Programs Director with South Dakota Urban Indian Health and seeks to integrate culture and spirituality into community healing models. She is passionate about intergenerational healing and educating others on how historical traumas translate to the present-day experiences of Native people.
Welcome back to the Collective Healing Conference. My name is Kasia Joubert. I also work as CEO of the Pocket Project. I'm one of the hosts of this conference, and I'm delighted today to meet our next guest, Serene Thenelk. A warm welcome to you, Serene, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very excited to share what I've been taught and have learned through my experiences personally and professionally, but also just to be in conversation about such an important topic.
Yeah, and I feel that not only I, but our community is excited to hear from you and to learn from you and with you. So yeah, maybe we'll just start with getting to know you more deeply. If you could share a bit about where you come from, your path, and maybe also the first times or how you woke up to the effect of individual, historic, transgenerational, collective trauma. What woke you up to these topics?
So I'll start by saying that we in our belief systems where I come from. So I'm Ihangtuan Lakota, which is on my mom's side, also known as the Yankton Sioux tribe, and then on my dad's side, he's Sichanglu Lakota, which is our Rosebud Sioux tribe. So we are really it's a very powerful thing because our land bases by treaty are supposed to be sovereign to sovereign nations, right? So we're our own sovereign nation within the United States, each tribe. And so I think a piece of what I'm very proud of is in our teachings, we have so many creation stories and so many things that have helped to guide us through the things that have happened to our people. And one of those powerful teachings is before we come from the stars, we are of the stars. And so before you come to earth, you choose your path. You choose your ate and your ina, your mother, your father. You choose this path. And I think at times that's kind of an interesting and tricky thing when people have suffered through so much pain and trauma, right? To say, oh yeah, I mean, it's easy to do that spiritual bypassing, or for it to come off as spiritual bypassing, that all of these really hard things happened. But guess what? It was all meant to be part of your soul's purpose. Like, I think on one level, that's absolutely true, but we're here to experience the humanness and being within our bodies and all of that. And so one of the various, I would say that one of the first time I woke up to it is probably when I made that decision to come down to earth in this form and this lineage that I was born into. But consciously as a human, I'm really fortunate to have grown up with both my mother and father being leaders in the community and really focused on trying to break those generational patterns. And so I kind of grew up around a healing community with ceremony and different things like that. And so I would say I remember very distinctly being told and hearing conversations and things growing up about the traumas that our families have been through. But it wasn't until I was older that I began to really see within my own family the pain just oozing out of everyone through addiction, losing people I love, divorce, physical abuse, all of those things that I witnessed siblings go through, or that I know my parents went through and had worked so hard to change, but because generationally there were so many things you weren't supposed to talk about, which was fueled by the boarding school experiences, which I can get into a little bit later. But I think that I began to look around me and I was in so much pain. I remember asking the question when I would pray or meditate, like, why this suffering from so many people that I love? And then, the steps of realizing and doing my education process about the policies, the US government policies and the systemic, the genocide, the current systemic racism, all of those things hit me like a ton of bricks the more I dug into the stories. And so that's what guided me to the work before I was even an adult, as I did a lot of reading and research and decided I wanted to become a counselor and a mental health therapist to help people with things that I was going through at the time. And I knew I could relate to it, but I wanted to have the skill set to also help them.
Yeah, so in that way, it makes sense again that your spirit comes in and, it touches me when you speak about the people you lost and the suffering you witnessed, and we can feel that as you speak about it, just the intensity of it. And that from all that, you decide to become a healing impulse and to dedicate your life to that. Such a strong decision, right? And I wonder whether you have any thoughts on, like you and your siblings. And I know you've had siblings struggle and with addiction and other forms, as you just said. How do you see this playing out? That some people manage to go through, I think often we ask ourselves when we're caught up in the suffering, why am I not able to be more resilient or follow the healing impulse? And why is somebody else able to do that in this seemingly the same traumatized situation? So what is your understanding for how trauma is passed down from the ancestry, how it ends up in us as individuals and collectives, but also in systems, how it plays out, that one person carries it in one way and another person carries it in another way?
Yeah, so that's, I think the different approaches to that, that's like the age-old question, right? I think that it's through these conversations that we can start to spark good dialogue and hear different perspectives, and also like have a sense of creativity about this, because I think that sometimes when I got stuck in the why, and then that would lead to the anger when I saw what, my great-grandparents, my grandparents had to go through, and my parents, and all, all the lineage, the ancestral lineage before had to go through. It was like these feelings of rage. And I think in some ways that rage taught me a lot, because there were times that my parents and grandparents and so on and so forth could not feel the rage because they were stuck in survival mode to not die. And were doing everything to be in that state, right? So that they could survive and get through. And so once I realized that, being in this state of rage and pain and crying and whatever I had to through the years to work through that, I had to allow it to go through me. I had to decolonize my mind, which is only something that I think we as Indigenous people can do. Is it's within us, because it's by design that things are the way they are for our people today. That's what I tell people. There's concepts of internalized oppression where, we took on the views of the oppressor, and they no longer would even have to do anything because it's so ingrained through colonization within our whole being. But in some ways, I like to talk about how to not carry shame about that. Like someone might say, oh yeah, I'm so colonized, like there's something wrong with me. I need to decolonize to, and it's like, just be slow with it. The first part is recognizing that this happened, and there's going to be a grieving process, which includes anger, shock, mistrust, all of those things that you work through. And then I think when you come back to a place where you say, now I'm understanding for myself and my family why we're hurting. It makes sense up here. And now in my body, my spirit, and my heart, how do I nurture and have what we say is Wa'ushila, which is compassion for ourselves, that the mistakes that people made before us, maybe it was abuse, cycles of abuse that were enacted, that they learned in the boarding schools from the priests and the nuns that would physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually and spiritually abuse them. Those were then transferred right to the next generations. And so it's up here where it can be liberating in your mind to say, oh, maybe my grandfather, grandmother, whoever wasn't actually born, they weren't a monster, right? It was deep, deep unresolved trauma and shame. And so now how do I heal that here and in my spirit? And so that's where ceremony, healthy community, and all of those things can really come along to help heal our spirits, which for us and our belief systems, we truly know and believe that it has to start with our spirit.
Yeah, it's very strong how you describe that. And if it's okay for you, I just like to, you just spoke about going slow. And if it's okay to just go slow, because I feel so touched when you speak about, the colonization, the ingrained shame that was implanted consciously and systematically, and how this led to internalized depression. And you also speak about the lateral depression. And then my sense is that those, again, as you just said, create so much shame, right? When we see it playing out in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, it kind of recreates that same, or it recreates shame, right? And as you just said, that also sits on our spirit, our sense of self-worth and our spirit. So I'm I just think they're not easy points to catch in us when those deep unconscious voices come up and start telling us negative things about ourselves. And these things come up when life hits us, right? When something hits, that's when those voices come up. When we're anyway wounded by life, then those voices become strong and they're so destructive, right? So how do you work with people when these voices, I'm just very aware of the intensity and also how hard it is to stay with them and look at them and actually support their dissolving or moving on. So how do you work with this?
Yeah, I think it's the very first thing is recognizing you hear this phrase, but I really think it's true that we can truly only meet people as far as we've met ourselves. And I think there was time early on in my career when I was definitely going through a lot, and my nuclear family that was growing up with just so much. And then I was starting my own family and I hadn't done, a lot of that healing work. And I think at that time I was thinking, I will not consciously, right? I'm going to suppress this part to be present for other people. But I learned through the years that my ability to be with myself and discomfort and take away some of that shame, and realizing the differences between healthy guilt and shame. Like guilt is a biological emotion that's like within us, right? To kind of keep us in line in terms of a group setting and all of that, like learning the differences between it's okay and probably healthy. It's maybe reflective of your value system. If you're feeling some guilt about something that is doing harm to yourself or someone else, versus the shame of I'm a bad person and I'm never going to change, and just all of the things beliefs that you carry surrounding the trauma. So whether it's the collective big trauma, intergenerational stuff, or the interpersonal traumas or different things that happened, we all know we attach a narrative to that. And so for me, the more I faced myself and could sit with myself, the more I could sit with someone else. And there's something that one of my mentors, he's an elder, told me. He was my first clinical supervisor. And he told me that one of the most profound gifts that he's seen in his work as a supervisor is someone who has a therapeutic presence, someone who is able to really, truly, and fully be present and hold space for someone. And he reflected back to me. I didn't see it myself at all because I was young and new in the field, but he said, you have that. And he said, when in doubt, when you feel like you're sitting with someone in a session and something is so heavy, return to your heart, return to your spirit, smudge, and trust. In some, what we say, Tunkashila, trust the universe, the creator, and all of these things that they're sharing is the first step, right? And so for me, I learned to not take on the stuff that was being shared with me because I have learned how to do that healing within myself. And so I think that the ability to respect someone's path and journey, sometimes that means they go, we say spirit world, sometimes that means they leave spirit world early. And that's part of the great mystery for us. And we recognize that those things, they're painful and they're hard. But we don't ever try to alter or impose on someone's path. All we can do is be in relationship in a healthy way. Sometimes that means boundaries, whatever that means. But that healthy relationship and interconnectedness, for me personally, and seeing people I've worked with, is what can ignite enough of a foundation for healing and hope. Yeah, I think that relationship is the basis for all of that, and meeting someone where they're at and believing in them. And I tell a lot of people, I trust in your path. You may not see it, but I trust in your path. And they don't see it. And sometimes we'll come back and say, you saying that to me because I know you really meant it, helped me to start thinking I could trust myself slowly, right? So I think it all just stems from healthy relationship with self, and then we're able to connect to people in healthy ways.
Yeah, beautiful, very powerfully explained. Thank you, Serena. And I love also the clarity of distinction between healthy guilt and shaming. It's super helpful. Yeah. And the clarity that we respect the other person's path and we trust their path. Yeah, that there's more than we could know. So, as we speak about this, maybe you could just explain a bit more the connection between historic and intergenerational trauma and the shame that we see in today's generation.
Yes. And I think so. I currently am the director of Indigenous mindfulness for the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. And so I'm very, very proud to work with this team because there's a initiative to start gathering interviews. So we'll be traveling, and the team has already traveled to other places and will continue to travel for the next year and a half to different places where boarding school sites were, and interviewing the survivors and archiving those, archiving those interviews so that people, loved ones, would potentially be able to have access to that. In that process, the stories that we hear, horrific, and we know that even prior to the boarding school policies that were put in place where all Native students, all Native children became students within these boarding schools. And in these boarding schools, the whole focus was to, as they have in their policies, kill the Indian, save the man. And so it was to take away everything related to our identity, including our language, taking us away from our families, forcing them to be indoctrinated, into this belief system that is so foreign to them. And also being told, that they were savages and they weren't fully human, but they would do their best to work through religion to have them be saved. And so all of those traumatic events from the time a child is born, taken away from their family, beaten if they say their language, they have to cut their hair. So many of our Native children died in that process. Countless, thousands, hundreds. It's hard for us to tell because we're still finding those mass grave sites. And this is just a few generations back, 2 generations back. This isn't like ancient history. And even prior to that with the genocide and things, right? So we're looking at a group of Indigenous people on what we call Turtle Island, North America, who went through this and are still feeling the effects. Very, very much alive. I've sat with families after the survivor or relative. Some of them, prefer to be called just a relative, and others say, yeah, I am a survivor of the boarding schools. However they choose to identify, welcome them into the room after they've told their story on camera and it's being archived. And most of them say they feel like something has been lifted off of them that they were carrying for so long. And so just to talk about a list of symptoms and things that they experience as a byproduct of this is chronic dissociation from their bodies, their minds, their hearts, their spirituality, and their identity of who they know in their spirit and their heart they were born to be, but were beat and told that they should never be that. The cycles of abuse that they experienced from young ages. I mean, I'm talking 5, 6 years old, some of the most horrific stories you can hear from the priests, the nuns, the guards. All of these things then brought them to a place where, well, they were 18, they left, and all of a sudden they're told, now start a family, or go live your life. And if you can imagine just generations of people who are traumatized in every single part of and sphere of their life, trying to come together sometimes and create a family, incredibly hard. And so when I sit with a survivor or a relative who just told their story, and then a family member who comes with them, the pain and the tears, sometimes the relief, it's a mixture of so many things for them as they're recognizing the energy, the ancestral energy that is in their room, and like the heaviness of it, but also the power. And so sometimes when I'm sitting with them, I cry with them because I feel that pain. And so many of the children of the survivors will say, I didn't know growing up that this is why my parent was this way to me. I thought it was because I was unlovable. I thought it was because I couldn't do anything right. I thought, and then the parent will say, that's because that's what I believed about myself, because that's what I was told, in that experience. And so I think the first thing that comes to mind in terms of the effects, they're great. They're massive in the hearts and minds of our people, and they continue today. And the systemic racism and policies. If you just look at people's policies within their workplace, and so I just putting a call to people who might be listening to this to really take a look. I mean, if as Indigenous people, people of color, other people who have been disenfranchised or, gone through colonization, have to every day look at ourselves in order to keep moving forward against some of the ties and pain, I would challenge people who, I know everyone carries suffering, right? So I'm not discounting that, but in terms of the racial karmas and all of those things that we carry, to be able to say, in the least, why don't I start at gathering some resources of how I can help my organization or my practice become decolonized? How can I make this a safe place for people who may not look like me or have the same beliefs as me, but because they have the highest rates of, suicide and addiction and trauma, what if I was another person they actually felt safe to or safe with to provide services? And so we definitely do not have enough Indigenous clinicians, but I think you can have an ally and someone who puts on their website or, will say, like, pretty much stating to people, I am here in a way that acknowledges, right? Like some of the privileges I have given my status, but I also acknowledge the power of healing, and community and willing to learn and be open as a clinician or whatever it may be. I think that those simple statements and working with BIPOC communities, they'll go onto a website and they'll see someone's statement. They're like, this person is not Native or, is white, but I like their website. I think it can start with something like that, where they're like, they seem to acknowledge systemic things, and how oppression plays a part of mental health and those sorts of things. It can be really empowering, I think, for people to feel like, okay, maybe I can make this bridge towards getting help from someone who's not from the same background as myself.
Yeah, very touching, moving. I was completely with you when you shared your story. The one thing that what is even less heard is the heartbreak of the parents who lost their children. I'm a mother, and just imagining my 5-year-old child being taken from me. And then, because we also, as mothers, we feel our children. So the experience that we can't protect our children as parents is devastating, and so the sense also of not being able to protect each other as a community is devastating. And every time you say this is still ongoing, how could it be any different? And there has been so little deep acknowledgement. I mean, it's really just starting, but I love your invitation for all of us to make the whole of society a welcoming space where all this can be spoken about, can be seen, and it becomes safe, at least as a starting point. Yeah. It's very strong material that you bring. And I wonder how you've also experienced in your own life and in the lives of others. And I guess we're especially now speaking to the Native American people, the different, the original people of Turtle Island, how the ancestral wisdom and resilience that is carried in these lineages, how that can come through and can come forward again after having been suppressed for many generations.
Yeah, it's the beautiful part of this. That's the healing part. And I think healing just in general is ever present. I just think that if we calm our minds, our hearts, and connect to our spirit, healing can unfold. It's ever present, right? But being in survival mode, in some ways in all the ways, in the beginning is resiliency. And I think that the ancestral wisdom and powers, I mean, literally, like we look down at our veins, like that's our ancestors. Like they're literally the content of what they went through and who they are and all of their experiences is right here, alive right now, right? And so I think that in the very least, when we feel lost, even if we don't believe it, knowing that our ancestors are with us, right? People always say, well, they're not really here. And it's like, well, no, actually, scientifically, they really are. They're like a part of who you are, in addition to the fact that spiritually they're there. And some of the most profound, powerful healing, I think, for the world ahead, and I get emotional thinking about this too, is that if we're able to start acknowledging collectively, for just different groups of people, the cycles of power and control and abuse through all of time, right? Like even people in Europe who came over here and did that were also at one point, oppressed and internalized that, and then probably went then into the cycle of the abuser. And how do we acknowledge that these things are currently happening, right? Collective trauma is happening in our world right now. And if you zoom in on what our ancestors went through and where we are today and try to acknowledge what happened, give voice to what happened and heal it, that love and compassion that our ancestors had and still have is why we're here. You hear stories about them praying and surviving through the hardest things for the future generations because they knew that the love for the children, the Wakanyaja, as we say, the sacred little ones in our language, is so powerful that they would endure what they needed to make sure future generations could find healing. And so that alone, that love and that prayer is I think so strong for people to find their way back on a healing path. And so I guess I'll just kind of wrap this up by saying I think the ancestors are our teachers and they are within us. And to not I think that to not carry shame as well for some of our survival mechanisms, because they were, definitely there to protect us in the beginning. We just have to identify how they no longer probably are. It's not resiliency anymore, and an example for me is a survival skill was to be silent and act like I didn't have needs, and that I would tune into everyone else's needs and make you better and you're better and how and what do you need, and overly aware of mannerisms and sounds, and that would tune me in so greatly that that's what they're needing now. That's what they're needing. Meanwhile, I had no clue what I needed, what my feelings were. And so I think I carried shame about that. But then I realized, one, it's a gift actually, right? I think to be able to do that, but not to the point where I'm ignoring myself. And so I think we take the shame out of our automatic responses that our nervous system and our brain is conditioned to believe, and saying, oh, I'm in flight mode right now. I've been in it for like 2 weeks, and recognizing and being like, okay, how do I ground myself again and not carry shame around those responses? Because I know that that ancestral wisdom would say, "Wa Ushila, have compassion for yourself." Only from there can you do that healing, not from a place of shame.
Yeah, beautiful. And I also hear you speak and hear you say it now here, the importance of reaching out for help. If you're saying that you're working on these collective levels to come to people and say, tell me your story. This is worth preserving for future generations so we can heal. That's like so powerful. And that's community, right?
Yes.
So yeah, would you like to share more about that? Because I feel like, at least what I've seen from your life is that all of your healing impulses go towards healing community.
Yeah. Well, community. So there's a prayer, and you can, the traditional speakers really break this prayer down very, very specifically, but in general, mitakuye oyase, and it means we are all connected. That's our prayer. We say that at the end of our prayers. Sometimes we just say that before we eat, and it's just the acknowledgement of the absolute interconnectedness of every single thing in the universe, right? Everything is interconnected. It's just a fact. And the illusion of being alone and separated, it challenges that, which very much in our society, because of just capitalism and the way things have evolved, it's very much like, I want to get ahead of everyone else. And it's true. We need to, on one hand, I understand to step fully into our path and not be afraid, right? To be great and to feel great and to dream big, which is something I have been allowing myself to do over the past 2 years that I didn't realize I was stopping myself. And that was a part of my trauma, was not believing I could step into that, or I should, or whatever. And so I think in that way, when we fall into our truth, we're able to be in community in healthier ways. And when we struggle, we need those community spaces. It's just not an option for our people to not be in community. And that includes a meal. There are things that are medicine. There's traditional medicines. There's also just food, right? But there's spirit food. Within a community setting, you see yourself reflected in people's humor, which, by the way, Native people are like the funniest. Where if you were to come and hang out like with me and my family, or me and my sisters, humor. Oh, it is literally the most healing medicine. And we're always teasing each other and having fun and looking at, things in a funny way. And I do think that was already there, but even more so getting through the things that we've been through is our ceremony practices and our protocols and our humor. Like those are literally two of the biggest points of resiliency. Community is everything. It's in our ceremonies. It's how we help to take care and raise our children, and we prioritize it. Actually, maybe a little bit too much sometimes when things aren't healthy, to taking care of ourselves. But it's just the way that that we're made. And I think it's a really powerful and needed thing across the world to feel a sense of community and purpose and prayer.
This turnaround that you've created in your life and are creating for other people, from a deep sense of suffering, from collective wounding passed on, historic wounding passed on, and sitting in that, to actually harvesting the power that runs through your very veins and turning it around, as you call it, accessing the privilege of being able to take responsibility for the healing, is so amazing and so hopeful, so incredibly inspiring, right? And it does feel as if that is the possibility of these times, right? It's what is becoming possible right now. In the depth of the suffering, there's also this possibility of waking up. So I don't know whether you could say a few more words about that. And then also when you spoke about spirit food, I don't know whether that's the word that you used, but like you spoke about food and spirit food, food for the body, food for the soul, whether you could maybe just offer us a little inspiration of, where could we look to for spirit food, for soul food?
Yeah, that's a good that I'm gonna get. I've been for some reason when you talk, even though we're over the screen, I feel emotions, right? It's a beautiful thing to have these conversations, and I just really grateful because there's so much work to do, and it feels overwhelming, and yet being present is like the gift, and healing. So I'm just really feeling that right now. But I think that I'll start with the spirit food. That's a part of in our life ways, because we don't have a religion. We don't, there's certain protocols and things that we do, but we're in relationship with spirit and with the earth. And so it's not a religion. We call them life ways. And so a part of that is recognizing that when we are in ceremony, there's certain protocols that we follow to bring healing to our spirits and our bodies. And so there's some traditional foods that are made at certain gatherings and things that we do. I guess kind of looking at it spiritually, you'll have different people say that the way that we interact with one another and with ourselves is that nurturance, it's feeding, not like where someone's like pulling from you, right? But it's actually like nurturance and offering fulfillment for that person. And so in that way, that exchange spiritually between people is like we're providing comfort and sustenance to one another in that way, when it's in a healthy setting and healthy relationship. The secrets of, like, we'll just say, using the boarding school experiences as an example, when the secrets and acknowledgement are there, not being acknowledged and having the secrets and moving towards it, kind of like when change happens and you're healing trauma, they say it gets harder before it can get better, because you're not able to suppress or dissociate from, or it's right there at the surface. And that's an incredibly vulnerable and sacred time, because in some ways we can't run from ourselves anymore, and it's like there's something I need to do to get better. And of course, some people then turn to self-medicating. There's different things that people do. And I even look at that from a place of compassion, because it's like they're suffering and maybe they didn't have the people, the tools, the resources, right? And so on one hand, like you said, it is an absolute privilege, for me to be able to do the work. I think Creator Tunkashila every day that I can do this work, because it's why I know I'm here, and I love the Oyate, I love my people, I love my children, I love all of that. And then on the equally present is the need for access to services, the need for those spaces, the need for not like from a savior point of view, right? Like where I think the boarding school mentality or people wanting to come on the reservations and save the need, like we don't need that. Like we have the knowledge within ourselves, but having access to those resources for our people and making them easier for our people to access. And that could be a whole nother, I'm not going to go off on that, but that's equally as present as our people tuning in to what resources we have internally. And it's powerful. I think once you start to really face some of those things, it continues to change your life. And I tell other people in our community, once you start speaking and living your truth, once you start grieving the painful things that our ancestors went through and you went through and the losses that our people see at highest rates, like forever going to funerals, because of the effects of the historical trauma. Once you start to get on that healing path, you make other people stronger just by you doing that. And that's how we create that collective change. And so I just believe so much in the power of like each of us doing, our own work, and then allies being like, we're going to help in a way that honors your culture and who you are, right? Not like we're up here and we're going to lift you up. Like not, we exist in a circle, not in like a top down. So.
Yeah, Serena, you just said that there's this through space and time that we can really connect. And yeah, I find what you bring and how you bring it so powerful. And the simplicity with which, also the simplicity of this is not a religion. It's about my path in connection to Tonkashila, to the earth, to the sky, to my soul, to you. This is the path we're walking. And thank you for your invitation to all of us to do what we can do and to open our spaces in respect and honoring and bring resourcing where we can bring it so it can be picked up in the places where it's. Thomas Hubel sometimes brings this image that we need circles of resourcing, people resourcing, people resourcing, people resourcing, people coming to places of scarcity, and that this is really the global healing movement. And you spoke to that, and thank you for touching our hearts today.
Thank you. I thank you for having this conversation with me. I feel just very present, and I'm feeling emotional, but not in a healing way, right? Like talking about these things is hard because it's real, but it's also like the hope and just feeling so much love. And I think that is truly what grounds and is foundational to the work, because we all know the work can be very hard on any given day with ourselves and other people. So having these moments to talk in this way is really helpful. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
To learn more about the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, please visit boardingschoolhealing.org. Serene has generously offered our audience a free gift of her video, What We Carry for Our Ancestors, Intergenerational Trauma and Healing.